Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a follow-up video here regarding the Antifa terrorist that firebombed the ICE detention facility in Tacoma, Washington. Folks, if you'll notice, for some reason or another, there's been very little information about this incident here by the mainstream media. Nobody's saying a whole lot about it. The initial reports that came out, as in my previous video, was just a man threw Molotov cocktails, tried to set a propane tank on fire, and he was eventually shot dead by police. But shortly after the initial reports, the information began to surface online that this guy was an Antifa member. And sure enough, he is a Antifa member. He had a manifesto. He was armed with a rifle, and according to this information here, the guy was 69 years old. He had been a long-time Antifa radical. William Van Spronson. And we've got a report here from apparently what looks like a first-hand account of one of his friends. Described him as an anarchist and anti-fascist, and believes his attack on the detention center intending to provoke a fatal conflict. He was ready to end it, Bartley said. I think this was a suicide, but then he was able to kind of do it in a way that spoke to his political beliefs. I know he went down there knowing he was going to die. She and other friends of Van Spronson got letters in the mail just saying goodbye. He also wrote what she referred to as a manifesto, which she declined to discuss in detail, but predicted it would be taken by authorities. Flashback to 1 year ago, this very same guy right here was protesting outside of this very same ICE facility, the one he firebombed. He was involved in an altercation at the protest. He wrapped his arms around the police officer's throat and shoulders in an attempt to free another Antifa member. He was arrested for this. When police got him in the handcuffs, they found a collapsible baton and a knife in his pocket. That led to charges. The guy was put on like a 1-year probation for that incident. This incident here has occurred on the weekend of the reported nationwide illegal immigrant roundup, and also the nationwide ICE immigration detention center facility protests that are taking place. I don't know if I mentioned it in my previous video, but some of the protesters tore down the American flag at one of the centers, replaced it with a Mexican flag. I've got a website pulled up here called It's Going Down that has this guy's entire manifesto, his final statement. It looks like this guy was ready to go. He done this knowing he was going to die. I'm not going to read this manifesto to you, but here it is. And the thing about it is that Antifa group is putting this guy up as a hero, as a martyr for the cause. He believes, through reading his manifesto, they are going to start a revolution. To the Antifa members, this guy is a hero. Rest in power. We are going to inherit the earth. There is not the slightest doubt about that, folks. I've often mentioned this in my previous videos that Antifa is a terrorist group. Their violent attacks, their activities are acts to instill fear, to terrorize people. This last couple of sentences here from this manifesto, I will read that right here. He says, I am Antifa. I stand with comrades around the world who act from the love of life in every permutation. He says here, the semi-automatic weapon I used was a cheap, home-built, unregistered Ghost AR-15. It had 6 magazines. Right here, folks. I strongly encourage comrades and incoming comrades to arm themselves. We are now responsible for defending people from the predatory state. Ignore the law in arming yourself if you have the luxury. I did. And as you can see here, a photograph is posted to this website. Antifa members, fire to the prisons. Look at that, folks. Rest in power. Stop deportation. End incarceration. Abolish ICE. Folks, the left wing, the far left media personalities praise Antifa when Antifa commits these riots, chaos, attacks, vandalism. There's very little to no mention in the mainstream media that Antifa is committing acts of violence, acts of terrorism. Here we have yet another incident of an Antifa member committing what can only be called a terrorist act, folks. We have members of Congress openly calling to abolish ICE, openly pushing for open borders. We have members of Congress openly aiding and assisting people with warrants evade capture. Folks, stuff started really getting crazy in 2016 when Trump got elected. And now the Antifa's actions are becoming, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, becoming more hostile, more violent. And folks, it's only going to get worse as the closer we get to 2020 elections. Thanks for watching, folks. Like, share, subscribe to this channel for more great videos.